Hey, besties and bosses. Happy Tuesday. How's everyone's week going? I'm looking forward to hanging. I feel like we have a very fun conversation today, and it almost seems like it's fun in games because that's the title of today's conversation. We're talking about what board game strategy can teach you about winning at the game of business. However, it's actually a really practical conversation. We're going to talk quite a bit about mindset and strategy. So while the title is fun, and yes, this is going to be a very fun conversation, we're looking through the lens of something fun. We are going to be talking some really practical things that I think are really helpful to look at in our businesses, and we're going to use games as a fun lens for that because there's a lot of crossover. Before we dive in, a couple announcements because I always forget to do this stuff, and don't mind me. I'm always like going live after a day of calls, which are so great, but then I've been like in my chair and I always find I can't sit still. So don't mind me as I'm kind of rocking back and forth here. Just moving the energy a little bit. So announcements, we have our free masterclass at the end of this month. This month we are having Transform Your Money Blocks in air quotations because if you know me, you probably know I don't really believe in blocks. That feels very like it's permanent, and I believe these are things we can shift, but transform your money blocks into gold. I am going to be going through a workshop and walking you through a process that I created. This is something I don't think anyone else is teaching because it came out of my brain. It's something I created based on a couple different practical principles that I am aware of that I put together, and I found it to be really transformative for alchemizing, transforming some of those limitations we have around money. I've used this myself. I've literally, while using this practice, noticed money come through the door. I've really seen it help me shift my relationship with money and also things outside of money. We're using money as the lens here, but we're going to use this tool. You can use this tool with anything that is really limiting you and sabotaging or keeping you blocked from that next level of success. So we're going to walk through that practice. I'm really excited to do this with y'all, and you'll get a free bonus playbook with that. And I think we're giving away a free session with this as well for one person who signs up. So I'll make sure I drop the link for that. I think it's kimargetsinger.com/transform-your-money-blocks, but I'll drop the link to make sure because sometimes I have those URLs wrong, incorrect. There should be the Facebook group banner should also be linked to this. So that is at the end of this month. We are very excited to have that. And then the other announcement for today, I think last week, today's live stream is actually the one I had scheduled for last week, but I wanted to have a conversation around the economy. And if you haven't caught that live stream, definitely catch the replay on that. I think we're having a very important conversation about the economy and what my opinion and thought process is around that, and just some things and practical ways you can look at whether or not we're in a recession, how to navigate that. We also have a podcast coming out next week, another conversation around that. But we didn't have a giveaway. So today we do have a giveaway. Say hi, leave me an emoji, leave me a praise hands, leave a comment. You'll be entered to win a copy of my 6-week sales course, Sell Out Without Feeling Like a Sellout, which is now also for sale if you don't win at kimargetsinger.com/sell-out. And this is honestly a course we could sell for $2,000 or $3,000. We sell it for $99 because I want you to have both skin in the game, but easy access to these sales principles. We're giving away one copy of that today. So leave me a comment, leave a comment anyway. If you don't want the course, if you already have the course, still comment and engage. It makes this conversation so much more fun, and I think we have more insights that way. So don't feel like if you don't want or if you already have it, you can't comment, but we will be giving that away. We'll pick winners on Thursday, and we'll DM you if you have won. Okay, those are all the announcements. I always forget those, so I want to have them first. Then let's dive into today's conversation. So if you're on my email list, if you saw in the group, I had just the way I described this, my husband and I are pretty much big dorks, and I say that with the most love possible. I found my equal dork match, so I'm very happy about that. One of the things we love to do on the weekends, aside from having epic long walks and conversations and reading our books together and drinking wine, we love to play board games. And my husband has a collection. He has sold a lot of them, but I want to say there's over 250 games in his collection, which he's kind of culled over the years. I remember when we first met, by the way, I don't know if he knows this, when we first started dating and I would go over to his apartment in the city, he had all these boxes. He had a one bedroom with like a little spiral staircase. There were all these boxes under the staircase. And I knew there were games in there, but I didn't really think that much of it until I moved in with him. And he had to unpack those boxes. And I don't know how many of you know Manhattan Spaces. We're now in a really great big loft apartment, but at the time we were living in downtown Manhattan in the Lower East Side. We had a typical New York City 1-bedroom apartment, which means not that much space and definitely not a lot of closet space. And I remember moving in and have seen the quantity of board games and literally having this minor panic of where are these gonna go? And I remember it's such a girl reaction. I thought, where are my shoes gonna go? But we found our whole kitchen the whole top of our kitchen used to be from the top of the cabinets to the ceiling, all board games. Anyway, Needless to say, we have a lot of board games, and to date, I said 120, it's probably more like 150 games we've played at this point, and I really love them. I don't love learning the games, I really love playing the games, and the conversation we're gonna have today and what I wanted to bring to the table is something I've learned after we've been together, almost 8 years, after playing this many board games with my husband. I'm really good at them. I'm a little competitive. I win just as much as I lose. But I think the games we play are very strategic based. And what I have found, before playing this many board games, used to think board games were all based in luck. I do believe we make our own luck. I do believe some of luck is a mindset component, but I used to think like so much of it was just up to whatever cards got pulled, whatever chips got placed, and that it was kind of out of our control. You're just going to win or you're going to lose. And it used to really frustrate me with games. And what I have found is that, yes, there are some games that is completely up to luck, but most of the games we play are very strategic based. And there is a lot of strategy and planning that goes into them. And while, yes, there is an element of luck, you can really minimize the component of luck and really amplify your chances to win. There are certain games we play on the same team that I know reliably we are going to win. We just try to best our own score because we have a solid strategy in place. And so that's what I want to talk about today, because what I found is a lot of the games we play, the strategies that work really well and the mindset around some of those strategies really mimic business and making money. In fact, when we play a board game where the way you win is whoever has the most money at the game or whoever has collected the most resources like money, and it's about there's a lot of games where it's sort of like whoever has the most gold at the end of the game. Usually those are the games I tend to win, because what do I do for a living? I strategize and work the mindset around making money for both myself and helping my clients do the same. And I've just seen there's so many parallels. And if there's a board game that has to do more with like conflict and fighting and like a war game, those are the ones that usually don't do as well unless there's a strategy and it's more like how are we strategically moving pieces. So giving a little premise here, because I think the title of this live stream for some of you might be like, why the F are we talking about board games? I want to know how to make money, Kim. I want to know how to grow my business. I want to know how to scale my business. And what I just want to like preface here is what we forget sometimes is business is really simple. And the strategies that work in business, the mindset that works in business, we start to see these principles outside of our life everywhere. And if you can I encourage my clients to do this a lot. If you can start to notice outside of business, what strategies work for you? What mindsets work for you? What helps you get the things you want? Where are those crossovers? It can really help you apply the same to business and make your business feel a lot easier and help you tap into the strategies that work specifically for you. I think we talk about this a lot. It's literally, can't say words today, literally saying this to a client today. We were talking about her social media strategy, and we were talking about how it's helpful for her to look at how she connects, what works for her outside of business, outside of the online space, and to bring that into her strategy. Anyway, I'm a little off on a tangent, but I feel like that's where this topic comes from, and something I want to invite everyone to start to play with and cultivate in your life. Where can you start to see those pieces of evidence outside of your business to bring into your business? But let's talk some board game strategy. And hey, if you like to play board games with your loved one, with your kids, little fun bonus here, you're also gonna get some good board game strategy on how to win more board games, but we're talking about how to win at the game of business and money. So I don't know, I kind of want to start with the mindset piece because that's the part I'm probably most obsessed with, but I actually think we'll start with some strategy pieces because I think that might be helpful to hear first, and then we'll transition to some mindset and maybe close with some more strategy. I was surprised at how many things I have on a list here, so we'll see how many we get to in the next 45 minutes, but we'll try to cover as many as possible. And again, say hi, leave me an emoji, you'll be entered to win a free copy of Sellout without feeling like a sellout, the sales course, just for those of you hopping on a little later. So and hey Kate, for some reason it just showed me that you're here, so nice to have you here. So the first concept here that I think is really helpful to understand in board games, but really what I see make a huge difference for people in business, and I think this is one of the places strategically that unfortunately so many really smart, talented business owners, this is a place they get in their own way, and it's understanding the concept of engine building. So when you play a board game, usually one of the reasons I think, particularly when it's a board game around making money, I tend to be really great at those games because it's literally what I do again for a living. It's one of my skill sets. I've always been good at making money and generating money and helping other people make money, help my brother get his first job and make money at like 12 or something. We actually have the napkin somewhere where I like drew him a plan for how he was going to do it. This is how my brain works. And so when I see a game and that's the outcome, I have a really great ability of zooming out big picture, seeing the outcome, and then looking at what is the engine I'm going to build to create this outcome I want. So the outcome of this game is I want to make a bunch of gold. I now need to create an engine that's going to make gold. So most board games, I hope this is making sense for everyone, but most board games, then you have to create different ways you're going to make the gold or get the points in these board games we play. And one of the things I have found with these games is it's really important at the beginning of the game to decide you are going to build an engine, and you're going to build an engine that works for you. And usually the front half of the game, it looks like you're losing and it looks like not a lot is happening because you're so focused on building this engine, so to say, this strategy, this thing that is going to later on generate points for you, gold for you, in our case, in our business, money for us, right? This is really similar to all of us in business. We're building an engine. We're building a marketing engine. We're building a sales engine. I say engine, but it's a process, it's a strategy, it's something we have to put into place. That usually on the front half of the game, on the front half of our business game, it's going to take some work to build the literal engine so that that engine can work for us later to generate results, gold in the game, money for us in business. Hopefully this is tracking for everyone. It makes sense. Let me know if you have questions because I know I'm using some like dorky board game lingo, but hopefully this makes sense. So whenever I play a game, first thing I sit down is I zoom out, what do I want to create? What's the engine that's going to get me there, right? This is really like what we do with strategy, pretty practical. We create a plan. And then I know I have to focus the first half of my game or for a certain part of the game on just building this engine. And usually what I do is I make sure this engine is like super robust. And my husband at this point, he will kind of get frustrated halfway through the game because usually at the beginning of the game, it looks like he's winning because he tends to go for some more points and some stuff at the start. And I'm building this engine. He said before, he's like, I know what's going to happen though. It looks like, because I'll sometimes be frustrated because it'll look like I'm not winning. He'll say, it looks like you're not winning, but I know what's going to happen. All of a sudden, the end of the game is going to happen and somehow you're going to have this pile of gold and win the game. That's what happens for us in business. And so in business, our job is to create a strategy, to create that engine, and to know at the start, oftentimes when we're building the engine and feeding the engine, right, in a board game, you build the engine, then a lot of times you're taking turns just to feed that engine so it can run for you, which means you're not taking turns just to grab some quick points on the board. But if you do this, you end up creating something that massively compounds, give you way more points than any of those quick points you could grab on the board. That's what's true for you in business too. If you build an engine and if you focus on feeding your engine, it will look like you're not winning at the start of your game. But if you trust in your engine and you know your big picture and you feed that engine, you're gonna hit a point with your strategy where your engine starts to work for you. And suddenly you create massively more points or gold or money in our case than you ever could if you were just trying to quickly grab something here and there, right? In business, this is sort of I'm sure we all know business owners like this who they do book clients, they do make money, but they don't really have an engine. They don't really have a well-oiled machine, right? That they're rinsing and repeating. They just kind of like do a thing here, do a thing here, do a thing there, and it works for them. They get a result here, they get a result here. But that's kind of the limit to their capacity for income and growth. And it's not to throw shade, that's not to knock anyone. I think we get to see if that is your engine, do something here, grab something here, do something there, that really limits you. Whereas if instead you build that engine, you feed that engine, maybe you miss out on a few of those initial things you could grab, but you have something that keeps working for you to compound and give results. I think that makes sense for everyone because I don't have to see any questions, but let me know if you have questions because again, I know I'm bringing like board game analogy and I want this to make sense. I'm just seeing here because I definitely made notes for this one so I don't forget things. I want to make sure. Okay, so the piece I want to speak to here, this is where it's a little bit of mindset, a little bit of strategy. What I found in games is the mindset piece is really starting to know and trust in the strategy you've picked, the engine you've decided to build, and to stick with it and to trust in it and to have some delayed gratification, because what you'll often find is it's really easy to get distracted and you're gonna, let's say, this is like a silly example, but let's say it's a game where you build an engine that needs a lot of like wood pieces and the wood pieces go through your little engine and they're gonna get, you're building a factory and they're gonna make gold. This is like the weirdest board game I'm making in my head, but just hang with me here, right? you're going to see opportunities in the board game for something that seems so much more exciting. There's something that's like takes coal and turns it into diamonds, or there's something that will give you a quick instant 5 points. You know, there's all these things that'll be really shiny and exciting, but for them to work, you'd have to build a whole new engine, and it will start to give you diminishing returns, or by grabbing that instant gratification point, you're actually missing out on something you need to build and strengthen your engine that's going to give you more points later on. And so I find the same thing is true for us in business. What helps me win in board games, what helps you win at the game of business and money, is understanding your long game play, being in it to win the long game, playing the game in front of you, right? Playing what's showing up in front of you, but not having this mindset of like, it's just luck, I just need to grab what's in front of me. Really trusting the strategy you've picked, knowing you're playing the long game, and really sticking with the engine you've built and working that, and really only playing the cards, so to say, or the pieces, or choosing the options that fit the engine you've picked. So this is similar to business, right? If we pick a strategy in business, there's always a shinier strategy popping up, right? We're in the online space. There is a new shiny strategy every 5 seconds. There's always someone selling something else. Those strategies work. I was just on a mastermind call with some dear sisters and friends of mine this week, and they were talking about a strategy they're going to implement. It's brilliant. It's going to work. And I had to be so mindful to get clear on what's the engine in my business that I'm building, what's the engine I'm feeding. Is this shiny strategy? Is this coal that's going to turn into diamonds over here? Is that the engine I'm building? If not, I have to be so mindful not to just grab another, distracted thing, because then I would have to build a whole new engine. That is a whole new strategy, a whole new engine to build, a whole new engine to feed. Would it work? Yes, but it would still take time to build, to feed, and it may or may not work with what I'm doing. What serves me in my business, what serves you in board games and winning board games, is getting really clear on what's the engine you're building, picking and sticking with that, and then only choosing things for your game. Like, let's say you have cards you can pull in your game, only choosing things that are a match for your engine and leverage your engine's abilities. So in board games, and this is the same thing in business, this is the same thing with investing, right? Any game we're playing in life. In board games, a lot of times, whatever engine you have, cards or pieces will come out that really stack, that work with that specific engine. So if you're smart, you only choose things that work, that are congruent with your engine, so you really can leverage the engine you're building. And that's how you start to really compound results and win. The same is true for you in business. So a strategy I have here, right? I go live every week and I talk to you. This is a part of my engine, right? I have picked this. I have stuck with this. We have been doing this for years. And it would be really easy for me to be like, well, but everyone's talking about TikTok. TikTok's supposed to be, I'm not hating on TikTok, but like, it would be really easy for me to see that's working really well. That would be a whole nother engine to build. Instead of saying, this is an engine I've picked, I need to stick with this engine and compound it. But what I can do, if I want to leverage this engine, if I want to be smart, I can see what cards are on the table. Is there anything that kind of works with the engine I already have? So something that might work with the engine I already have, strategically. If it was in board games, it might be, I have a wood mill and there's something where it's like, then there's a lumber store, and these two cards go together, so they work really well together without a lot of extra buying power, and they can give me bigger points at the end of the game. If you don't play board games, this will make no sense to you, but hopefully this is tracking. In business, right, it's seeing, oh, I do live streams every week. That is my engine. That is a big part of my engine that I really want to work. But I can take this live stream and I can send it to my email list. Or I can take this live stream and I can turn it into repurposed written content within my Facebook group. That's a way I can take something, I can take a card, I can play a card that is going to work the engine I already have. That's how we strategically leverage our strategy in business. Same in board games. Okay, I think y'all know what I'm talking about. Excuse me, but everyone's quiet, so if you have questions, let me know. Okay, I'm just seeing here. The other piece here with the engine, and I think this is similar for us in business, what I have found with board games, and again, go play some board games and then thank me when you win. I have found it's really important at the beginning of the game to put the blinders on, to get clear on your engine, to pick an engine strategy, to pick it, stick it, and build it, and to know there's sort of that delayed gratification that the points are going to come later. any of my runners who've ever run races, if you've ever run a marathon, I feel like it's sort of the similar thing when they say go and you cross like the start line. Usually, at least for me when I run, I know I have to pace myself and I'm going to be a little slower. I have to get my engine going so that I have enough in the tank to kind of sprint towards the end. And like that first part of the race really doesn't tell us anything about who's going to win, who's not going to win. Kind of similar in board games, similar in business. Yeah, there's a point in a board game where you start to see it doesn't make sense to keep building engines or to keep strengthening your engine because there's only so much game left and you're going to start to get diminishing returns. And there's a point in the game where you want to pivot, and that's when you really want to start leveraging your engine to bring in more points. And it doesn't make sense to keep, like, you don't want to stay in engine building phase forever because then you're never going to get the points that help you win the game. And so strategically, you want to kind of look at the game and understand, where am I building this where it's working enough for me to maximize the points I can get without overworking it to the point where I'm never going to have a chance to recoup the return, to get the return. And it's going to be sort of diminishing returns. It's going to be more effort or more in the board game, more resources that I'm going to have to spend that aren't going to give me enough return in terms of points by the end of the game. It's the same for you in business. Yes, we want to pick a strategy. We want to stick with it. Yes, we want to build an engine. Yes, we want to work that engine and have that delayed gratification so it can work for you. And so something I coach clients around all the time, we have to understand there is a point of diminishing returns. There is a point in which we have to pivot from building your engine to allowing that engine to work for you and letting it just do its thing and not overworking it or deciding you have to build on another strategy and do more and more and more. Because what you'll start to see is all of that extra work you have to expend doesn't give you enough return that makes sense. And at some point, you can keep putting into your engine or building another engine or investing into your business. And not only will it not increase your return, but sometimes it'll start to give you diminishing returns. So that happens in board games. It's actually really fascinating. There's a couple of games my husband and I play on the same team, and I've gotten so great at knowing where I'm like, there's literally a part in the game I'm like, we have to stop doing this part of our strategy right here. I'm a dork, y'all. Like, I really like to see like how we can maximize points. This is how my brain works. It's why I'm so good at business. It's why I'm so good with money. So it's just like the dorky way. I like literally do this for fun and love this stuff. So don't feel weird if this is not how your brain works. Just happens to be my happy place. But there's a little part in the game where I'm like, this is where we literally need to stop building this engine, feeding this, and start moving into collecting points to be able to get the most points possible in this game. And it's actually really fun because it's a game that every time at that point in the game, it seems like we're losing. It seems like it's going to be impossible to win. And it's like, the mathematics work out where it's like, because of the engine we've built and because we pivot at the right time and we leverage it, and because of that compound effect, usually not only do we win, and this is luck based in terms of it's still based on cards coming out, but we not only win, but oftentimes we like exponentially blow the points needed to win out of the water. And it's very fun to me because I think this is where, again, yes, there's a luck component. Yes, in business, there's a luck component, but I do think we create our own luck to a certain degree. Yes, from a manifesting mindset standpoint, but also to the degree in which we create and we pick a strategy and create that engine that supports us to really leverage and not rely on luck, kind of work whatever is being presented in front of us. And the same is true for you in business. So I want to invite everyone to think about that with strategy and just to see if you have a strategy, if you're building an engine, to really check in and see, are you at the place where you're building that engine? And yes, maybe then really being okay with, I'm not getting the return I want because I know I'm playing the long game. And I know if I build this engine and I focus on building this engine, that long term is going to give me far bigger results that are going to compound than if I didn't focus on building this engine. I was just trying to grab points. Similarly, if you're building that engine and it's starting to hum along, I really want to invite you, instead of getting shiny object syndrome and seeing, oh my God, there's this cool thing on the board, let me go chase that. I really want to invite you to look at how can I to take the cards on the board, take the pieces on the board that are congruent with my engine so I can leverage this engine I've built, because that again is what's going to let you, even if you have, I'm using the, like, if you have a wood in games, a lot of times it's based on like resources. And so sometimes like a wood engine is kind of like lame, and something like coal that can make diamond is way better. However, you can win with a wood engine if you work it. You can lose with a coal engine if you don't know how to work it. I have won plenty of games with a real crap engine because I know how to work and leverage them. And so I want to invite you, same thing, whatever your engine is, see if you're at a place where you can leverage it instead of getting caught up in the shiny objects and opportunities around you. And then I also want to really invite you to notice, are you at the point in your game where it's time to not pivot directions in your business, but pivot off of the building your engine phase to trusting that your engine is working for you and seeing you no longer have to build it. You just need to keep it humming. It's now time to get into, let me get the benefits from this. Kate says my hubby and kids refuse to play Cluedo. I think it's called Clue Free in the US with me because I always win. I could see you always winning that. I think I'd refuse to play with you too. I feel like you're very sleuthy. I could see that. It's the brilliant coach in you. It's very funny. My husband's really good at games as well. I think we are evenly matched probably in terms of how many games we each win. It's just really interesting. I love playing games with him on the same team. We have a lot of co-op games because our strengths are different in terms of like I can almost usually tell who's going to win a game based on what the components and what kind of strategy is needed for the game. So it's actually really fun we play together because then it's like we are unstoppable. So I love that your hubby and kids know that about you, Kate. Okay, let me pull up the next pieces here. I'm going to pull one more strategy piece here that feels aligned with what we're talking about, and then we'll talk mindset a little bit because I think there's some really interesting mindset things I've noticed with winning at board games, but winning at the game of business as well. So incredibly parallel. So the other strategic piece I have noticed with board games that's actually really fascinating, and this is something when we play with my stepson, Jack, he's getting better at this now, but when he was younger, this was a place where he's actually really great at board games, but where he sometimes wouldn't win and would get frustrated is he would really see when the board game was placed, he would really see just what's in front of him in the big points and want to go for those. And sometimes that strategy would work for him. But what I've really noticed in board games is, I don't know if I'm describing this well, but hopefully this will make sense here, is you literally can't do it all. And most board games I find are designed to create a possibility to win, but they usually introduce just enough element of temptation that if you try to do it all, you will actually lose because there's not enough time in the game. There's not enough turns in the game to leverage all of the things you could do to actually get enough points. A lot of games are set up that the way you generate points, they do kind of compound each set of getting points. I don't know, one thing could be winning cards, another thing could be resources, but kind of what you accumulate at the end, you start to see if you have 2 of something, you get 2 points, but if you have 4 of something, you get 16 points. I'm making this up, but like the points will increase based on quantity, and if you spread yourself thin, you will get points in every area, but you'll get the kind of bottom rung of points, which is before those points have compounded or multiplied, or what's the squared, maybe is probably like horrible math terms here, but I think y'all are picking up what I'm putting down. And so the way to usually win a game is to get really clear on the few things you're going to go after and to kind of specialize in those and just to go over those and just to be willing to literally leave points on the board. It is such a mind fuck, but it's really fascinating, especially when my husband and I play together, because we'll talk some of these things through and kind of just working through and really noticing how in order to win a game, in order to get the most points, oftentimes it's not the thing that looks like it's going to give you the most points. And oftentimes you have to be so willing to leave some really shiny big point things on the board so that you can leverage, again, the engine you have, because that's going to give you far more points, even though like it rationally doesn't seem sense just with what's on like in front of you on the table. The same thing is true in business, right? We see this all the time. When someone specializes, when someone narrows in, when someone focuses on the ways they're going to generate and make money, it seems like you're leaving all these opportunities to make money on the board, right? It seems like such a counterintuitive thing. If you pick 1 or 2 things to sell and focus on that, your brain is like, but I could also sell this thing, and I could sell this thing, and I could sell this thing, and I could sell this thing. Why wouldn't I sell all of those things? Of course, that would just be more money. But what we usually find is what you focus on expands. And if your energy and focus is diffracted across a couple things, it's not just what you focus on expands, it's what you focus on with an engine behind it that generates results expands, right? And so in a board game, there's just literally not enough turns to create enough engines to maximize the points in all the ways you could grab them. In your business, it's the same thing. Even if you have a massive team, there's not enough turns in your business to maximize all of the engines you would need to build to sell all of the things at the same time. It's why even giant companies tend to specialize. Even massive companies tend to specialize, and then after they've mastered a couple things where the engine is running for them and they're selling that reliably and really well, then maybe they'll add on a whole nother department to their business. So it's the same thing in business, it's the same thing in board games, but I feel like I talk about this probably all the time in live streams and with clients all the time. It's such a mindfuck, and that's why it's a mindfuck. I think board games actually illustrate it really well, because you can literally see the things you're leaving behind, and our brains hate the idea of what we could lose. Our brains just see that as lost opportunity. And what I want to invite you to start to think about is lost opportunity, points you leave on the board. Start to see those as compounded results you get to keep, right? I know when I leave points on the board, I almost get like giddy inside. Again, I'm a weird freak with games and this kind of thing. So take it or leave it. You can borrow this from me. I almost get giddy inside because I'm like, ooh, I know if I leave that there, I'm about to surprise everyone in 2 turns when this engine, this strategy I'm working quadruples that, because you can't tell it, but all these little things that I've been building this engine, they're about to quadruple or 5 times. And that's fine. They can waste 2 turns trying to get that 10-point thing here. I'm about to get 35 points over here. That's the same thing for you in business. I want your brain, I really want to invite you to start to think the points I leave on the board, the offers I don't sell, the things I let just sit there. Get excited about yes, but in 2 turns, I'm going to get to sell something. I'm going to get to make money that's 3 times what it could ever be if I tried to sell all the things. Hopefully that resonates with everyone and makes sense. And hopefully you can see how this is both a strategy, engine building, picking and sticking with that, but also in terms of the ways you're generating points or the ways you're making money in your business, right? I think I'm probably at this point one of the very few people who focus really on one offer and making money from one offer. I think most people at this stage in business, I've been in business for those of you who don't know me that well, 6.5 years, and I only offer one-on-one. We have the sales course I mentioned, but these are all less than $100 with all the love in the world. I'm not getting rich on those. That's more to have some skin in the game for you. I make my money 99% of my income comes from one-on-one. And I think it'd be really easy to be like, well, Kim, if you did all of these other things, you could make so much more money. But I'm just so aware that one-on-one is what I love and what I believe in. And I want to walk my talk and put my money where my mouth is, and that whole piece from like an integrity, congruence, value standpoint. And I also know the more I focus on doing this one thing really well, the more I work this engine, the more I work this strategy, the more I work this point system, so to say, the more it compounds for me. We have so much ease in my business, and my business continues to generate more income and scale. Last year alone, we added, without doing anything new, we added an additional 132K. And I think that's just so fun to see. And it's the same thing that we see in board games, right? Without having to do anything extra, you can compound your points if you really focus on those core strategies and not trying to grab everything on the board. Not to say you can't have more offers if you're a one-on-one coach. I have plenty of clients who have multiple offers and they leverage them really well. This is almost like going to a different conversation, so I don't want anyone to take that from this conversation. Absolutely, you can have more than one offer, but look at how you can really leverage one engine, one offer first, and leave some points on the board and see where the opportunity is in that for you to increase your revenue. Okay, let's pivot to some mindset. Let me know if you have questions, thoughts, reflections. Okay. I'm looking at the time. I'm doing this because I have lots of things I want to share here, and I want to make sure I pick, because I have a few here. So I'm actually going to pick this one first. It actually I feel like this is the thing that people's brains will maybe resist because it almost sounds too easy on a mindset perspective, but I've really just seen this to be so true with board games and in business. And it's a 2-parter here. It's learning how to get to neutral and stay in neutral, make decisions and plays from a neutral place, and really embracing the mindset of fun and levity. So I'm going to explain both. I think honestly, we could just have a live stream on each one of these and a top like conversation on each one of these, because I think they're so powerful in business and in board games. Let's start with the neutrality piece. So what I find with board games is honestly the times I don't do so well in board games, aside from like if it's a conflict, if it's like a war game where we have to like fight one another, I don't like direct conflict. Like I've gotten better at it, but I'm not the best at those games. But if it's a strategy game, I'm a competitive person. I like to win. And if I go into a game super competitive and I get frustrated because maybe a turn didn't go the way I wanted to, or I missed something on the game, and I get out of neutrality, I am pretty guaranteed that I am going to lose that game. Not because my strategy wasn't good, not because I messed up a turn or missed something on the board, but as soon as I get out of a neutral mindset, a couple things happen. One, it's really easy then to start spinning out, obsessing over that turn you like messed up on, or that card you missed, or that thing you didn't see, or that point someone else got. And as soon as you're out of neutrality and spinning out on that, and we do this all the time in business, right? You have a sales call that didn't go the way you wanted to. You're in the middle of a launch and your sales email didn't get the results you wanted, or you didn't get the number of signups you wanted on day 2. As soon as you get out of neutrality and you start spinning out about that, we are focused on the past. We're literally wrapping our brains around the axle of something that can't be changed and modified. What's his name? Trevor McCow, is that how you say his name? He wrote Getting to Neutral and It Takes What It Takes. He talks about this a lot with sports teams and sports with athletes. And sorry, don't mind the noise in the background there. And how athletes, like neutrality is such an important, powerful mindset for athletes, because they need to be neutral to constantly focus on the next play ahead. And if you're a football player, for example, and you fumble the ball, if you're not neutral, it's really easy if you fumble the ball to just get wrapped around, I fumbled the ball, I fumbled the ball, I fumbled the ball. As soon as you're focused on that, you are losing the game, because you're not focused on the next play ahead. I've got to throw the ball to get the next point. It's the same thing in board games. It's the same thing in business. As soon as we're out of our neutrality, we are human. Our brain is wired to want to replay the past, to loop around the past. It's a self-defense protection mechanism. It's great for avoiding being hunted and eaten by a tiger or a lion, or getting attacked down an alleyway if you've like down in the past known that was a scary place to go. It's not so great for winning at the game of business or board games or sports, right? And so neutrality is such a powerful mindset. If I can go into a board game and be neutral, if there's a little flub, if I miss something, right, and I can just let that roll off of me, then I can focus on the next turn ahead. And when I'm neutral, I know all that really matters is the current turn and the next turn I'm playing, and kind of the big picture strategy. If I spin out, all bets, I have to then hope that my husband also gets out of neutral, because otherwise there's a really good chance, it doesn't matter what cards come up, because as soon as I spin out and focus on those past turns, as soon as you spin out in a launch and you're focused on the thing that got messed up, as soon as you are a football player and you focus on the fumble, not only are you not focused on the turn ahead, but if we look at board games, if we look at business, the other thing that happens is we're literally focused on what's not working. And this is kind of like where what you focus on expands. We talk about this in so many different ways. This is also when I find I start self-sabotaging and create a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I'm like, I already messed up. I already lost this game. So I will either make that happen, or my creative thinking will shut down. My strategic thinking will shut down, right? Kicked my phone here. I'm literally in a part of my brain that is not creative thinking, problem solving, which means I also will not notice the opportunities on the board in front of me. I will not notice when I take my next turn the really great strategic card I could take that's going to help me 2 turns down the road. So much of playing board games, so much of business, right, is being neutral, being strategic, being able to look at the play that you're currently on and then kind of think of 2 plays ahead. Same thing in board games. It's really hard to do that when you're not in a neutral mindset. It's also really hard to do that when you're in that frustrated place because you dropped the ball, you messed up the card, you messed up the launch, whatever the story is. That's again also when I'll just like phone in my turn, right? That's when, if you're in the middle of a launch, I find that's when people are like, oh, it doesn't matter, it's already over. They'll start phoning it in. And again, that's when we'll create that self-fulfilling prophecy. And then we'll think we have the evidence to like, see, I told you, to ourselves that we were going to lose the game anyway, or the launch wasn't going to go the way we want, when really all that happened was we got out of neutral. And as soon as you get out of neutral, it's really tough to make those strategic neutral decisions that move you forward. So from a mindset perspective, I find that's one of the biggest gifts with playing, or I mean, think about poker. Poker is like a game that epitomizes the power of neutrality. Your business will thrive off neutrality. I feel like we've talked about It Takes What It Takes, the book, quite a lot. I feel like I'm always singing this book's praises. It's a very simple book that's based on more sports coaching and sports psychology, but I think it's so analogous to business. And I just am obsessed with the concept of neutrality, because I think in our space in particular, we talk so much about the benefits of positivity. And I'm all for positivity. I think positivity is a beautiful thing, but we can get into toxic positivity, and sometimes positivity can actually not be very useful for us when we're trying to strategically think and make decisions, especially with challenging things in front of us. And so I love the concept of neutrality, because what is harmful is spinning out in that negativity or spinning out by looking backwards. And so we need to find that middle ground. Neutrality I feel like I'm like praise handsing neutrality. It is such a game changer, pun intended, in games and in business. The other mindset, which is completely different from neutrality, and I need a sip of water real quick, that I find fascinating how much this changes my ability to win board games and my ability to make money in business and my client's ability to make money win at the game of business. And that is embracing fun and levity. Now, I'm saving this one towards the end of our live stream, because I felt like if I brought that in first, everyone would eye roll me and hop off of this and be like, Kimberly, levity and fun, that's the way you win at the game of business. That's the way you make money. So hear me out on this, because I think there's actually a lot of brain science that goes into this and a lot of practicality that goes into this that we forget about. So I'm going to share this piece first. When I started working with my coach, so I've worked with her for 4.5 years, I think, 5 years. Anyway, further towards the beginning of my business, when I was just probably making around 5K a month. So in context now, we make between 30 and 40K a month. So I was doing, I was making money, but it was definitely feeling really hard. And I was like working really, really hard. I was working far harder to make that 5K a month than I work now. Not that I don't work, but it felt a lot harder. And I remember having a conversation with my coach where she was talking about having some more fun, bringing some more levity. I can be very serious, and I had a really hard time latching onto that. And so I did an experiment for a week where I was like, I'm just gonna embrace fun and levity and see what happens. And just see where I can infuse that. And it was fascinating, y'all. I think that might have been the month I had my first 10K month, but it was really interesting. Business got so much easier. Probably was doing the same stuff, but everything felt easier. I made more money. And I think that is the energy that really shifted things for me. Not that my business was going poorly before then. I think 5K months are beautiful. I was so proud of those. That was amazing for the phase of business I was in. So wonderful thing, but I just saw how much easier things got and how much easier it was to grow my income. And the same is true in board games. I see when I show up with levity, with fun, it is so much easier to win the board game. It's so much easier to notice things. And here's why. When we're in the energy of fun, when we're having fun, when we treat things lightly, when we play with things, we're literally holding things a little bit more lightly. When we're taking things so seriously, we get very grippy and very constrictive. And what I find energetically, for those of you who are into manifesting and energy, I find this can really block the flow if you're an energetic person again, right? We have to think fun, levity, it's literally that open energy. I think fun energy is also the energy that magnetizes things to us. I mean, think about it. Aren't we more attracted to things that are a little lighter and a little funner and just a little less constricted? Doesn't mean you can't be serious and have fun. I'm not knocking seriousness, because I can be a serious person too. And I think that's a little bit of a different thing, but bringing in that fun and holding things lightly. In board games, what I find happen as well, because not necessarily you're not manifesting everything there, but even if I look through the strategic mind, when we're in a playful mind, they've done research on this, on the power of play and bringing play in literally is a strategic thing. I mean, if we look at kids, when kids are playing, think of how energetically they're showing up, how light they are. Think of how nimble people are when they play, how nimble the mind is. If anyone's ever done improv, that is play. Think of how creative your mind is. Think of how you're able to make new connections. Think of how you're able to see new opportunities when you're in that playful energy. So when you play a board game, it's meant to be played. It's meant to be fun. So I think what's the point otherwise? And in business, I feel like if we're not bringing that fun energy, kind of what's the point? And I think there's an element of if we're dreading things and we're not holding things lightly, at a certain point subconsciously we will sabotage our business. We'll sabotage a board game because our brain never wants to create something that isn't what we actually want. And so if there's that incongruence, we will subconsciously sabotage our results, if that makes sense. And so there's that piece, right? If we're not having fun, if we're miserable, if we're slogging through business, or if we're slogging through a game, or if we're all pissy in a board game because someone else is winning, not that I've ever been that way, subconsciously we're going to shut down and kind of just like want to like tap out, right? And when we're in the mindset and energy of play, I really think this is what opens up creative thinking, and this is what taps you into your prefrontal cortex, which is problem solving, future thinking. It's all the things you need in business. It's all the things you need in board games. If you want to be able to look a few turns ahead, if you want to be able to strategize, if you want to be able to see opportunities on the board, it is so much easier to see those opportunities and to make new and different connections, right? As business owners, we have to think, what are we really doing? So much of us are creative problem solving. We're making connections out of things that weren't there before. We're literally making something out of nothing for most of us. And that sort of creative thinking, that sort of strategic thinking, that sort of creative problem solving, right? Being able to see opportunities and make those really interesting connections that someone else couldn't. That's how you win a board game. That's how you win at the game of business. But it's hard to do that when you're not in a playful, light mindset. When you're in that fun, playful energy, you're tapped into a different part of your brain that can, again, make those connections. It's why I honestly think my acting days in improv, I think it was so beneficial for me in business, because it is working that muscle of, I'm just going to go have fun. I'm just going to play. I'm just going to take things that, like, I'm not going to know the outcome. I'm going to take things that I don't know how they go together, and I'm going to watch that beautiful combination come to play. That's what you do in board games, and that's what we do in business. So I know saying have more fun seems like such a, I don't know, almost fluffy mindset that sometimes I think can be frustrating to hear, where it's like, really have more fun, be more playful. That's going to help me make more money. And I want to make the connection to, yes, sincerely, have more fun, be more playful, bring more levity is literally connected to the part of your brain that is going to make those strategic connections, see those opportunities. If I think about a board game, when I come in with levity, when I come in with fun, when I'm just like, whatever happens, but like I'm having fun doing this, those are the games where I'm like, oh, I can like see three or four turns ahead, and I just see opportunities on the board. Whereas if I'm like, I don't know, not that I ever play games like that, but let's just say I was like, playing games, I'm literally going to shut down my ability to see those opportunities. So I know I'm hitting all over the head with this, but I get very adamant about the power of fun, because I know it's so interesting how we resist the things that feel good. I think many of us have either conditioning from society or from well-meaning teachers or parents, or have just seen this play out in our industry, and this narrative and story that it needs to be hard, it needs to be punishing to work, and there needs to be a struggle to be able to get results, and it needs to feel almost like painful and challenging to be able to get a benefit on the other side. And I want to offer, yes, business presents challenges, and yes, I think it's false to say business is easy. I think if it were easy, everyone would do it. I think business can be hard to grow a business, not to create a story, but just in that it is a challenge. I think it does ask a certain type of resilience of us, and within that, if we can have fun at the game of business, at the game of board games, right? If we can bring in that fun and find the fun in the challenge and bring the levity to that challenge, that is what will allow you to win. And it doesn't have to be a struggle. It doesn't have to be painful. It can be a very fun game, and taking that mindset can make all the difference. Kate says, I can definitely be too serious, but I absolutely believe in the benefit of play. Having the kids on the summer holidays helps. Absolutely. I think having kids is such a great benefit for that. Kate, I wrote, this is probably like 5 years ago, I actually wrote a blog post about play, because I had Jack, my stepson, he's 12 in November, so he was probably around 6 at that time. And I remember we had him, and we had started out the morning playing, and it was obviously such a fun morning. I think it's why it's so beneficial to have kids for many reasons, which is one of like the side benefits we all get as parents and step parents. But it was just so interesting after having Adam, we dropped him off to school, because we had played in the morning and had so much fun and laughter. I remember that whole day of work was so much easier. I had all these different ideas for content. Coaching calls were just I was maybe still serious in the coaching call. I don't think serious, Kate, just to like, I don't think too serious is a bad thing. I think we can have a fun, playful energy and still be serious with our work. But because of that fun, playful, the levity that I was bringing then into the day, I was like, even coaching calls, I could just see different things I wouldn't have been able to. I could bring fun to the seriousness. So co-signing what you're saying, but I also don't want to make, I think taking our work seriously is not a negative thing. I think there's a dichotomy there where we can take our work seriously and bring a lot of fun and levity and the mindset of it's a game. All right, hopefully that makes sense. I think there's a detachment in that as well. And I think detachment is, as soon as we detach, things are so much easier. This is not one of the points I was going to make for y'all, but as we're speaking to this, I think overall with the fun levity piece, even just think about the title of this live stream, treating your business like a game, winning at the game of business. I think if everyone, I know I think about money this way and I think about my business this way. When I think of my business as a game, when I think of money as a game, it becomes so much more fun. And it also helps me to get more to neutral, as opposed to, I think what happens for so many of us is we take it really personally. We don't see it as a game. We take it, I think this is where like the too serious part can be a bit sabotaging. We make it mean a whole lot about how good we are, good enough. We make it feel very life or death, and it can feel very heavy in that way. And I think when we create that separation and treat it more like a game, not to say it doesn't have serious implications, and of course everyone needs money to pay their bills and all of that. I'm not diminishing the practical realities of money, but I think just from a mindset, like a way to think about business and money, it's just a little easier to get to neutral and to just start to see it in a different way where it just feels a little more fun, and it feels a little more fun to show up for and to make those decisions that can really yield those big results. Hopefully that makes sense for everyone. Okay, let's see here. Do I want to share one more? I know we've been talking for an hour. I'm just seeing, do I have one here that's like a quick one I can share for y'all? Because I hope this is interesting and helpful for y'all. I'm going to share one last one here. I am going to share, which one am I? Okay, this one's actually, I think, a really, really easy one. This will be my last one, and then we'll wrap this up. And again, if you're watching on the replay, let me know if you have questions, and let me know if you like, y'all, I'm very curious because I have fun finding things outside of business that relate to business. I feel like that's one of my favorite things to do. So if you like these kinds of live streams, let me know if you want more of them. But I know sometimes we just do the more practical ones as well. I'm happy to do either. I always like to know what everyone prefers though, because I obviously do these for you. So I want to make sure people are benefiting from them. But the last thought here, which is a bit practical strategy and a bit mindset that I think is helpful for winning at board games, but also winning at the game of business, which is what we're talking about, is taking the mindset and the strategy and the approach of playing the game in front of you, not the game you hope will show up. Let me explain what I mean by this. What I find can really screw you up in board games, and the same is true in business, is deciding on a strategy and then waiting for the right cards, the right engine, the right pieces to show up for that strategy, instead of playing the game that is presented to you and creating a strategy around that. And I find you can really screw yourself and lose a game that way and have such a great, brilliant strategy, but it's a strategy you never have the opportunity to play because nothing presents itself for that in the game, and it can be very, very frustrating. And I find one of the biggest gifts in board games, and it is literally the same thing in business, I'll explain how this is related to business, but in board games is, yes, to have that strategy and to build the engine like we talked about and to stick to that engine and all of those things we talked about at the beginning of the live stream, but to be really mindful to literally play the game that is presented to you and to respond to the game that is presented to you and to work with what you've got in front of you, and to, if you need to, adapt your strategy to it or your engine to that. That's what will allow you to win a board game. And if you're sort of like waiting for something else, it can really screw you up in a board game. The same is true in business. I see this with clients all the time, and we talk about this all the time. I think it's just such a normal thing where a client will just be so clear on the perfect strategy, the perfect thing, the perfect type of client they want, the perfect type of, offer all the things they want to have happen in their business, but something very different is being presented to them. And it's so easy then to want to wait and try to find something else and try to manipulate things to have different cards, so to say, presented to you. And so often with clients, what I talk about, it's not that they can't want what they want. It's not that we can't, start working on something else on the side to have that work for them. But I find so often what allows you to win at the game of business is to also really play the game that is presented to you, to show up for, to serve. I think it's a Rumi quote. I think my coach actually shared this with me. I think it's serve what's put in front of you, but it's to really play the game in front of you in business and to allow that to be right and to work with what's put in front of you instead of constantly sort of almost waiting for a better game, for better cards to show up. Right? It doesn't mean, again, that we can't hope for a better card to show up or hope for, a different piece that's going to help create that different strategy that you really want. But if you can start to play the game in front of you in business and in board games, that is what will allow you to win all day, every day. The beginning of the live stream I was talking about, and I know everyone doesn't play board games, but in board games, you'll have different types of engines you can build. And I'll say how, I was saying how a lot of times there are like really strong engines, like ones that use coal that make diamonds, for example, or turn lead into gold or something like that. And they're like, that's really, those are the cards you hope show up, because if you have that, you can win the game. But you can lose a game waiting for those cards to show up, or waiting 3/4 of the game, that card finally shows up, but you don't have enough time to build that engine. Or you can play the game that's put in front of you. This is what I've said. I've won plenty of games with the crappiest engine, the crappiest cards, the wood engine or the stone engine, because I played what's been put in front of me and leveraged them to build an engine to get results. The same is true for you in business. And so, yes, it doesn't mean we don't want to work towards the engine that creates the diamonds and the gold, but I want everyone to see you can win a game without those engines, or you can leverage other resources that'll give you the same results. And you're always going to come out further ahead if you start playing what is in front of you instead of always waiting for something else. I feel like there's like a metaphor in all of life for all of us in that. So that is what we'll close on. Play the game that's put in front of you. Actually, one last thought here, because this is actually the biggest lesson I learned in board games, because I think strategically I'm pretty great at board games, but the one piece I learned that's helped me so much in finances and investing as well is not just playing the game that's put in front of me, but remembering if I have resources, my job is to use them. This is like a tangent, so we'll go a couple minutes over if y'all don't mind. But I think this is actually really analogous to our live stream last week, or analogous, I don't think analogous is the right word, but it speaks to what we were talking about last week with the economy and investing and just like understanding how to leverage your resources. When I started playing board games, I would collect resources and hoard them and think if I just hoarded them, then like I could use them all at the end of the game. And what I have learned in board games is if you collect resources, yes, you want to be strategic with them, but it's really important to play the game in front of you and to use the resources you have and to leverage them, because that's how you can turn them into more resources and really work your engine. This is so true in business, and this is so true with your money. I think there's such a tendency for all of us, well, not all of us, but I know this is the way when I'm in an unhealthy mindset around money, I can get very like, let me just save all the money. Let me just hoard all the resources. And that's not bad, but then you just have a pile of resources you're not leveraging. Whereas when I'm in a more healthy mindset, I know whatever resources I have, I am going to do best to leverage them. For example, if I have resources, my business is going to grow so much faster and further if instead of hoarding my money in my bank account, if I look at how can I invest that back into my business? How can I invest that back into myself? Because then my engine is going to work more and I'm going to get more results later. Or how can I invest this money into the stock market so it can make me more money later? Either or. So that is something I've just found in board games to be so true, because that is a way I was not winning board games at one point with my husband. There were certain games where I was just like, I don't understand. I have all the resources, but I wasn't leveraging them. And the same is true in business. I know the more I leverage my resources smartly, strategically, based on the game in front of me that I'm playing, the more I can win the game of business, the more I can really work that engine I have. Okay. All the analogies are done with the board game. I won't I have a couple others on here, but otherwise we'll be talking for 3 hours about board games. I hope this was helpful for you all. I personally had fun geeking out on board games, and I hope seeing how those parallels connect to your business was helpful, just so you can see some of that thought process that goes into, yes, winning a board game, but also winning in business and winning with money, and seeing how there are so many examples outside of business that I think can be really applied to your business, and seeing how simple these concepts are. I really want to invite you to think through what we talked about today and see which one really lands with you the most and what might be useful for you to put into practice in your business. Because yes, we're having a lot of fun here, but see which of these ideas, which of these concepts jumped out to you the most. Kate says so helpful. I love board games too. So glad you loved them and so glad it was helpful. But really invite everyone here to see. We talked about a lot of different concepts. Don't feel like you have to apply these all. See if there's one that jumps out to you, and then see if that is one you can start to implement in the game of business for you, and see how that works for you to win at the game of business. Oh, no, I do have one last. Don't mind me, y'all. I'm like so excited about these concepts. I do have one last thing I want to share with you. This is actually really important because of the title that I wanted to share. Because we're talking about winning at the game of business. And what I found in board games is when I pick a strategy and stick with it, at the end of the game, I kind of don't care if I won or lost. I mean, I'm competitive. I do care if I won, obviously, but I don't care as much if I won or lost as much as I care, did I pick a strategy? Did I stick with it and did I work it? Did I stay neutral throughout the game and did I work that strategy? And then if I didn't win the game, that's fine, because then I can either go back and see what are the opportunities to improve the strategy, or I can see where there was just a luck component. There was a card that turned up that like there's nothing I can do about that. That's out of my control. But I can see I showed up for the things I could control in that game. That strategy, my neutrality, like really working the opportunities on the board that were presented to me. The only time I ever feel frustrated at the end of a game, even if I won, is if I know I didn't pick a strategy. Like if I don't know why I won basically, or if I don't know why I lost. And if I feel like I didn't really have a clear strategy and was sort of winging it, or if I feel like I had a strategy, but I let my emotions get the best of me and I let myself either get a shiny object on the board or spin out and kind of miss opportunities on the board or sabotage. That's the only time I get frustrated, if I lose or win a game, honestly. So I offer that to you because I think we talk about winning in the game of business, and I want to remind you there's not an end in business. We talk about this so often, right? There's not a finish line. It's not actually a board game. Winning at the game of business, it is a journey. We are always moving to a new level, right? We're always leveling up. The way you win at the game of business is not like who accumulates the most money wins this round. That is not the bullshit I want anyone to take away from this live stream. The way you win at the game of business, and that's why I wanted to go through these concepts this way, and silly on me that I'm just like kind of remembering to connect the dots here now, but is really seeing are you taking these concepts? Are you taking this mindset? Are you able to look at each round and look back and really clearly see why you have the results you do? Can you be proud of yourself in that way? And then can you take whatever you learn and apply it to the next round in business? That's how you win at business, because it is a long game. It's not a one round game. We are going to play this game over and over again, or these rounds over and over again. So I want to invite you to remember that when we talk about winning at the game of business, this is not like, and then this round is done and you're done. Like this is an ongoing journey. And so I think the more you can see, instead of measuring yourself to points or dollars, even though I know that's what everybody wants, but seeing more, can you measure yourself winning based on those processes and how you're showing up, and how you're showing up in terms of neutrality and responsiveness to navigating your emotions, to navigating your thoughts. The more I would see that as winning at the game of business, because that's long-term what's going to serve you always. And last thought there that I will put a button on, that does not mean showing up perfectly, right? That long game of business, this is not about, if I think about board games, right? It's not mean I'm a perfect human when I play board games and that's how I win a board game. It means I bring in that fun and levity, I hold it lightly, but I see if I can show up neutrally, and if I can get clear on that strategy, if I can play the game that's put in front of me, if I can build this engine, if I can take these steps the way we're talking about during this live stream, right? And I can hold this lightly, I can do it imperfectly, that's how I can win the board game. And even if I don't win, that's how I can look back at the game and either be really proud of the way I played the game, or get a really great lesson and insight that's going to help me the next time we play. My husband and I play games multiple times all the time, and especially when we play on the same team. We love afterwards debriefing the game to see what did we learn here so that we can go back and play it again and crush our points from the last time. It's so fun, right? This is where like seeing it as a game, holding it lightly, it's so fun to see, oh, look at what we learned because we showed up the best we could, because we had fun with this, because we played the strategy, because we stuck with it, because we stayed in our process. And we got okay points. Now look at how much we learned. We get to go back and do it again even better. And that's what I want to invite you with the game of business. See if you can take that approach, because that's how you're going to win. And that's how you're going to win as a human and feel really good instead of wanting to call it quits. The only way you lose in the game of business is by quitting or giving yourself a hard time. Okay, off my soapbox, but that felt important to close on because otherwise I feel like the whole context of this live stream would have been lost. I love you all so much. Thank you for hanging. Don't forget we have a masterclass at the end of this month, Transform Your Money Mindset Blocks. You know, I have a funny thing about blocks, but we're calling it blocks for the title, into gold. I'm sharing a process I created. At least I think I created it. I'm sure maybe someone else has something like this, but it came from my brain, didn't learn it anywhere, and it's worked really well for me and clients, and I'm really excited to share it with you. And if you leave a comment, say hi, give an emoji. We are giving a free copy of Sellout without feeling like a sellout to one person here. We will pick winners on Thursday. And I'll be back next week with another topic for y'all. Bye, y'all.